Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for joining today. I'm Shauna, host of Real Talk by SLG Impact. And I am so excited today to bring Matt Pazaras to the table. Matt is currently the Chief Business Development and Strategy Officer for the Bucks, the Milwaukee Bucks. But Matt is also a dear friend of mine, a mentor to me for a long time, and was my boss at the Nets many moons ago. So welcome, Matt. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to do this.
Good. So we were talking earlier, somebody who's in your seat, sometimes people thinks it happened overnight or someone gifted it to you. So can you walk us a little bit through your evolution and how you got to where you're at today?
Sure. So I did an internship when I was in college. I went to Boston College. The summer of 1995, I had an internship at the NFL league office. It was my first introduction to the business of sports. I fell in love, knew that was what I wanted to do, didn't know how to do it or how to get a job. I worked for 8 years at Madison Square Garden for the New York Knicks from 1996 through 2004. The Nets in early 2004 were sold to Bruce Ratner, who announced that Bruce Ratner, along with his partner Jay-Z, had a vision to move the Nets to Brooklyn. Pretty exciting vision. I received a call with an offer to come interview for a job to run marketing at the Nets. And that was pretty interesting for a couple of reasons I think we'll get into. And I did that for a few years with Shauna, which is why this is so exciting. I was in some different businesses related to sports, but not traditional like properties like we are talking about now. And that gave me some skills and some viewpoints that I think made me a stronger person if I ever got into the traditional sports world. And again, I think we're going to get into that. And then in late 2013, I received a call that the Bucks were possibly going to be sold. And one of the people that was buying them was somebody that myself and Peter Fagan, who's the president of the Bucks, knew. And lo and behold, in 2014, we were moving to Milwaukee with a dream to kind of treat the Bucks as a 50-year-old startup and start over. And that's what we did. And we're in year 6 or 7 of that, and we still have a long way to go, but it's been an unbelievable ride.
What a ride. Yeah, absolutely.
Overnight.
No, not overnight whatsoever. But it's actually interesting. So it sounds like during your career, and you actually rescued me at the Nets because I was the only one in there in marketing at the time. So thank you. But you really go to places or have been into places where they're at these like pivotal moments. So do you think that's something that have you sought that out? Has that always been intriguing to you, or is that just kind of what happened as the things were evolving in general?
I think a little of both, but what I can tell you is that's what was exciting.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where I knew I would learn a ton and I would grow a ton. So while I don't necessarily think that I went out seeking those opportunities, when they came up, those are ones that I said, yeah, I want a part of that. So the transition from the Knicks to the Nets, which obviously you're familiar with because we did it together, is a great example. So here I am. My first job was at Madison Square Garden, which is a massive company. Even at the time we had the media rights to not only the teams that we owned, the Knicks, the Rangers, but we had between the media rights and the teams that were owned and operated, to be involved in New York sports, you had to come to MSG. So it was this big company.
Yeah.
Then I go to the Nets, and as you said, hey, can you come run marketing? Great. Where's the team?
Me.
The person on the screen. That was it. So at the Nets, there was literally one employee, and it was Shauna. And we had an opportunity to reinvent the way we did everything.
Yeah.
And when I left there was 14 people in the department.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Which is pretty crazy, right? And we had an injection of energy with Brett Yormark coming in a year into it. And it was just an opportunity to reinvent the company. If you look at now, when 2021, Brooklyn Sports and Entertainment is what Madison Square Garden was at that time. It's a massive company. So to see the evolution of that. And then the Bucks is a similar story.
Yeah. So interesting. I love a few minutes ago when you were talking, you were saying that like it was exciting, but also you knew that that's where you were going to go and learn the most and grow the most. And that is, I just totally understand that. And I think maybe I caught that from you. I'm not sure, but that's usually where I like to point myself. So yeah, that's a great part. And then, just the evolution of sport within the last 20 years is crazy. Like launching social media at the Nets together, like even, and that has happened so much during, I think, the time period that you were just talking about. But then you take COVID that put it on hyper speed. So I would love, like, what are your thoughts on how COVID has impacted the way that your team is operating in, say, it's the sponsorship side, the marketing side? I've seen little blurbs here or there, like the, outdoor screening outside the arena and things like that. But how has that impacted you guys to be able to, like, that super fast evolution?
Yeah, well, a number of ways. I mean, the first couple of things I think about is we have an unbelievable digital marketing team at the Bucks, and social media team, content teams, and a good portion of our sponsors take advantage of those as part of their programs. But we've always said pre-COVID, the ones that aren't, we got to get them on board. Like if you're missing that, we got to get you on board. And the ones that are, we think we can even do a better job and kind of balance it out a little to where more of their assets are on our digital properties. And day one, we said that's going to be one of the big initiatives we're going to do, because we're not going to have fans if the building's going to be closed. And to hear, I've had several partners actually reach out and say, I really knew that your digital properties were valuable, but during this, I've seen it, and we're going to put so many more resources into it. So to hear that from them is really fulfilling.
That's awesome. And I think, like, if I'm wrong, tell me, but your digital engagement and your reach really exploded with the addition of Giannis as an international player, which kind of goes to all the hype even from last week with globalization. And so can you speak a bit about what you've seen from that? Again, talk about evolution to being in the swamps of East Rutherford to, to really like exploding on the global scene.
Yeah, we call that the Giannis Effect.
Yeah.
So when we arrived, Giannis was the group, the team came from New York in 2014, and Giannis had just finished his rookie year. I'm a big NBA fan, and I didn't know who he was. Like I didn't know who he was. I mean, his story is out of a storybook. It's crazy to go from this. Usually, guys that are back-to-back MVPs, you know who they are in middle school, and every recruiter for this is an unknown guy. And so when we talk about the Giannis effect, when we came to Milwaukee, our vision was almost like college football recruiting, college basketball recruiting. We had to start telling our story on the ground in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Build our brand back up, gain trust locally, build our brand locally. Then we'll go regional, national, and global. What Giannis did was reversed it. So we started going from global in, because all of a sudden we had in our hands somebody that made us, we're on national TV, we're on global media, and he made us a household name in Europe and in China and Asia. So we had a different kind of strategy. Yeah, he's a pretty big principal in the whole our story arc.
That's awesome. Well, I will also correct myself from now on, and it's Giannis, not Giannis. So thank you. And I can't, I can't get off of this call with you without talking about your leadership qualities, your kind of view on it. And I say that because you have been such a tremendous leader, and, I've had such a tremendous impact on my career. And I was mentioning to you earlier, when I look back at that time that we were together at the Nets, I never felt treated differently as a woman. We had, I think it was like you ate and breathed and slept diversity and inclusion, because that's just the way you ticked. And, I appreciate that. And I know that had an impact in the way that I evolved, in the way that I even viewed myself. And so I'm just curious if you can share with us kind of your leadership style, your perspective? Like, where did that come from? Anything that you can share about that?
Sure. First of all, it was instilled in me for my whole life. It started, with my parents, and I've just always been like that. I never really consciously thought of it. Our department at the Bucks is the same exact way. Like, we have everything you can name, we have it in our department, and it's just, I truly believe, and I learned that at the Nets because I didn't run a big department at the Nets. That was my first job. And I just believed at that time, it seems like we talk about it a lot more now in 2021, but this is 2004. And I just believed from the get-go that having diverse people and diverse backgrounds makes you better.
It's just better. Yeah.
Right. So it's true. If everybody comes from the same background and has the same thoughts, how can you be better? Right.
Yeah.
It just makes you better when you have all these, diverse like lines of thought, not competing against each other, but they make you better.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have to say thank you again so much, because I hear other people's stories and I know that it wasn't always the same for other people. And I'm just grateful that I had you as a part of my path and journey. So you actually mentioned earlier your award-winning digital team, and I saw you post last week that you have a job opening. So anybody is watching this and you have interest, check it out, right? It's on Teamwork, right?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. And you guys are third in the standings in the Eastern Conference. So good luck in the playoffs.
Thank you. We're excited. We're getting more and more fans at Five Star Forum. So we're going to make it as loud as possible when the playoffs start, which is less than a way.
Yeah. It's so interesting. I had kind of forgotten. I was all of a sudden just thinking that people were going to be there. So yeah, it's good to hear that you're getting more people in.
It's really been that's been the story, obviously, of the sports year.
Yeah.
And I was there when we had no fans at all. And therefore, with no fans, remember, you don't really have that many security. You have no ushers. It was literally like seeing an NBA game in an empty building. And now that we have, just the greatest thing ever. Not that we ever took fans for granted.
Yeah.
But if you needed the reminder, this is the reminder that without fans, our industry is nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, again, thank you so much, Matt. Appreciate you. And I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.